Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Uchu Sentai Kyuranger episode 23. I'm fairly certain that is the number. So this episode we sort of continued, we're building on last week, I guess I should say, of Ho-Oh Soldier sort of being integrated into the show. And we found out more about his backstory, which I mentioned wanting to know last week, and I think the week before probably. And there's still some stuff I'd like clarified in general, but there were some neat bits that were also in this last week's scans, which I read, so I kind of knew what was coming. But it was some interesting stuff. First, I just want to say I think it's kind of neat and interesting that we're actually keeping this part of the story going, whereas like this doesn't always happen, but I feel like more so in recent years for Sentai or whatever, when we're integrating somebody into the show or the group, we don't spend a terrible amount of time on it. We'll do like an episode and then everything will kind of be okay, and there'll be some sort of conflict and whatnot later, but I kind of like that this has now been two parts where we're sort of getting Sergei to mesh with the group, and I don't know, I just kind of like that. I like when things aren't so neat, it kind of creates a different dynamic, because he's still sort of off on his own, but then he also kind of still has Raptor and Sparta tagging along with him, so I don't know, I like their approach for that. Who knows, next week could be the Kumbaya episode, but for now I was just actually kind of pleasantly surprised that we're spending a little bit more time on this, because last week was kind of about like, well, you don't need to you know, be Kyurangers right now because I'm back, and then he sort of saw their value, but then this week sort of they clashed over like their styles again, where he was like basically the needs of the many, where he's like, people could have gotten hurt with what he did at the news station, but he didn't care really, because it's like, well, we may lose a few lives, but in the grand scheme of trying to save everything, which I'm usually on board with that way of thinking in some instances. That's a very interesting dilemma that will pop up in all different kinds of mediums, TV shows, movies, all that. Both the characters and the viewer will often feel different. Is typically I'm sort of on board with that way of thinking, but like if it's about a character I'm invested about, it's like, oh, if you're gonna kill this person, no, just let everyone else, you know, be destroyed. But so it's kind of an interesting dilemma that pops up. And in this case, I think he was being a bit extreme with it, because in most cases like that, there's usually like a clear-cut decision where it's like, you can save these certain people from the situation, or you could save everybody, whereas in this case it was just a matter of him being reckless for what he thinks will be positive end result. So, like, I usually agree with that way of thinking, but in this case he was just being a bit reckless. And so there was a bit about that, and a bit about how he shouldn't just use the other Kyurangers as shields. There's kind of like both sides to that, whereas like he shouldn't just basically treat his friends or his comrades or whatever like cannon fodder, but there also is the point to be made of like they should all be willing to basically, you know, take a bullet for each other. So they didn't really necessarily bring that up, but like Raptor obviously was willing to. That was something I did, someone brought that to my attention, I forgot to mention. Speaking of Raptors, it was kind of a neat reveal last week that Raptor is based off of like designs or early models or something that Sergei made long ago, which I thought was kind of a neat little add-on, both to the mythology and to like why they might have a certain relationship and whatnot. You know what I mean, like a friendship. Let's not get crazy, guys. But I just wanted to bring that up because it made me think of when I saw Raptor. So, but there was basically some conflicting ideals. It was sort of one of those classic episodes, nothing revolutionary about it. It was also maybe a little bit the classic where there's two reds on the team, so there's kind of an interesting headbutting there. I can't remember the last time we saw something like that. The only one I can think of is, I don't remember if Hurricaneger did it, but I do remember Ninja Storm doing, you know, Hunter and Shane conflicting a little bit because they're both reds. So anyway, there was a little bit of that. So it wasn't anything revolutionary, but I do like the way there's conflicting ideals. So to get on to like the main part, like the backstory basically is he was the first to find a Kyutama, and what's interesting about it, which I didn't remember reading from the scans, is that he actually found the Kyutama before dark matter was a thing, like, or at least before they invaded. So I didn't know that. I thought that, just assumed he found the Kyutama after dark matter had already started invading everywhere. So he actually found it before and wanted to use his influence to sort of unite everyone, and then dark matter showed up and he recruited 88 warriors from the various constellations. Now, unless I'm just not reading into things right, maybe somebody could explain it to me if I'm not, but I feel like there's still a disconnect about how him and the 88 Warriors and the Kyurangers are all related. Like, do the 88 Warriors have anything to do with the Kyutama? Because when I first read that, I'm like, okay, so do they have to do with all the Kyutama? Or maybe they're just unrelated to the Kyutama other than the fact that constellations. So I'm still curious about that, and that's definitely something I hope they clarify, because I do like that backstory of him essentially being the first Kyuranger and all that, and he gave up his immortality to defeat Dawn, but Dawn didn't die, obviously. Like I said last week, though, I still think there's a chance it could be like somebody that took his place and just doesn't want anybody to know that he's not Dawn. So we'll see, but I like what they're doing with him still with the mythology. I liked the backstory they gave him this week. I would love to get clarified more on like what that has to do with the other Kyurangers, because I can't help but think about how it was like the Fabled 9, and then like Commander was specifically chosen as worthy, and then Kotaro as well, to have their Kyutama changed from a standard one to a transformation one. So I'm definitely hoping there's something more about that. I don't think we'll get too much into more why like Ho-Oh's is so different from everyone's. Like, it's a unique situation because all the Kyurangers do have distinct outfits, but they're all along the same baseline. And Ho-Oh Soldier as well, but he does have some specific distinctions that separate him even more so from the other 12. So I think it would be cool to find out something about that. I doubt that, but I just hope we get a general, like, more filling in the blanks with that. Like, in my head right now, it's maybe because like the Kyuranger powers evolve over time and it looked like that because it was an older time or something. I don't know. But so yeah, that was kind of the meat of it. And then we had like the triple team up between all the mecha at the end. And then next week will be our big combined formation, which is really just Ho-Oh's mecha with all the different Kyutama on it. So yeah, but overall it was a pretty solid episode. I thought it was good stuff, some good character stuff for Ho-Oh Soldier's backstory and working with the team. I like that we're actually keeping that going. Some backstory revealed, and then we also got the first of those generals coming down and attacking as well, and he didn't remember Ho-Oh Soldier even though he remembered the bad guy. So that's interesting, and I like that was introduced. I kind of expected that dude to be introduced and either be destroyed or defeated, or they defeated him, but he was introduced as kind of like continuing that arc, and then we fought just a different like guy this episode. So I thought that was kind of nice. So there's all kinds of nice, little bit adding in, a little bit of setup, so I'm curious to see where it goes. I know of a few other details from the scans, which I won't get into, but I didn't see anything else too much about like the mythology or anything. It was just some stuff with Naga and whatnot. You've seen the scans, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, this was overall a solid week. Another 8 for me. I think it was 8 last week as well, but an 8 regardless. Till next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Dawson Ryder, signing out.